Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. And welcome once again to the Juice Box. I am Juice Springsteen. It is February 9th, 2023 as we're recording this. Just kind of one of those middle of the road weeks. Nothing really going on too crazy. We got a pay-per-view next week for WWE. We've got Elimination Chamber coming up on the 18th. And then March 5th is AEW Revolution. We'll be discussing a couple of those potential matches or matches that have been announced so far for those shows as we move along in this program today. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at JuicySteen. Follow this podcast, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, rate and review, give a 5-star review, that'd be fantastic. You can also follow the show on juicysteen.podbean.com, and as well go to my Instagram page, Juicy Wrestling Closet. That's where you can chat with me about wrestling shirts, memorabilia, wrestling in general, anything of that sort. Quick little notes. Speaking of such shirts, I purchased my ticket for the AEW Dynamite and Rampage taping for April 19th upcoming here at the Peterson Event Center. Should be a fun show. Looking to wear some sort of Spring Stampede shirt as it is an April event, so I will wear an April WCW shirt. Don't know which one I want to do, whether it's 94, 97, 98, 99, or 2000, but we'll see. I'll pick a good one out. SmackDown is also coming in March 10th. I have not secured my seat yet for that event, but I will do that pretty soon. It's coming up pretty quick. I can't believe we're already almost halfway through February. It's pretty insane. I'd like to kick things off this week, though, at least. Because I had wanted to do this from the beginning of this program when I wanted to start this, but I never really capitalized on it in the subsequent weeks of doing this show. But it's the this week in wrestling, in pro wrestling history, and I think there's no other bigger event that happened this particular week 35 years ago, February 5th. The date, 1988, the year. The event was WWF's The Main Event, which was a special show on NBC. I believe it's the most watched pro wrestling event of all time. Came from the Market Square Arena in Indianapolis. And this is the famous Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan WWF World Title match. First time since Survivor Series of 87 that they had touched. First one-on-one match since WrestleMania 3 at the Pontiac Silverdome earlier in 87. And this is the infamous Hebner twin magic. How much did they pay for the surgery, brother? How could they do it? And, Hogan's crying backstage talking to Mean Gene about it. What an incredible night. that promo, that match. The quick selling of the title from Andre to DiBiase, which never really took hold. He never was recognized as champion, although I think he should be. I know they announced DiBiase as WWF champion at live events after the main event, but it was never actually acknowledged. Therefore, Ted DiBiase is technically not a WWF champion, which is a shame. But this is one of the best storylines. Past couple weeks on this show, and I've been saying it for a while now, that the Bloodline storyline in WWE is, has been and is still going, and it's one of the best storylines that they've ever done. And after seeing the wonderful conclusion to the Royal Rumble Premium Live event a couple of weeks ago, I had stated that this is the greatest storyline that WWE has produced since probably the Mega Powers. But the storyline at the main event with the double referees, that was incredible storytelling for the time. They utilized both Hebners, Dave and Earl. Dave is unfortunately not with us anymore, but Earl, still a legendary referee in the business, probably the most recognizable referee if you were to ask even the casual wrestling fan. Like to tap into some stuff, not too much from SmackDown, other than, once again, it seems, and now we do know for sure, in Montreal on the 18th, it will be Sami Zayn against Roman Reigns for the WWE Undisputed Universal Heavyweight Championship, and it will be, I don't know, the crowd, I really don't have any words for what I think could happen with this crowd. The amount of energy that Montreal brings, just in general, and we'll get into predictions next week for that show. I don't think we're going to see another screw job, but we're going to see a slaughter, I think. And I think a lot of storylines are going to really pick up as we'll be even closer down that road to WrestleMania. But that match has been confirmed. It is now happening. Roman saying, Sami, you should have stayed in the bloodline, never should have left, never should have turned your back. And really, Roman Reigns turned his back on Sami, and Sami hit him with the chair. But, I mean, here we go again. We're going to get some fantastic storytelling at another premium live event for WWE, and I'm looking forward to that. Personal highlight of the SmackDown show for me was the highlight of Dom Mysterio racing his father at the LA Coliseum to kind of cross-promote the Clash at the Coliseum NASCAR race, which is a pretty cool event that they race at the LA Coliseum. This is the second year that they did it this past week. And the video of them racing around the track with the little markers as if they were actually at a NASCAR race was just phenomenal. And the jumpsuit with Dom, he looked like a real race car driver. He had the mullet. He looked like Sparky Plug. Finn Balor doing his best Jake Hager impression. Man, I loved every part of this. And Rey Mysterio wearing his mask underneath the helmets. Just the little details were just incredible. And I've always enjoyed the NASCAR pro wrestling connection over the years. There's, of course, is the monster truck fascination in the mid-90s with WCW, and I think later on in the 90s with WWF, but NASCAR in particular, there was the WCW 29 Steve Grisham car, the lesser-known Super Brawl 5 sponsored WCW car that raced at the Busch race at Daytona in 1995 before that February Super Brawl 5 event featuring Vader and Hogan. That's a lesser-known car. I tweeted this picture out, or the couple pictures out, and then, of course, the probably more recognizable 49 NWO Kyle Petty car. That's right, Kyle Petty, son of seven-time NASCAR champion legend Richard Petty. Kyle joined the NWO. I mean, you thought the NWO had enough members. They had a racing team, and Kyle Petty was the lead man there. Also on SmackDown, as we get in more with some SmackDown stuff, we got the match graphic for WrestleMania Goes Hollywood with Roman versus Cody, and it says Undisputed WWE Universal Championship, and above it says live Saturday, April 1st, Sunday, April 2nd, but it does not say, I'm not expecting them to say it at least right now, but they don't say what night that match will be. I would think that if they knew it was the main event, they'd put it on Sunday night. But I still don't know. Until Elimination Chamber concludes in Montreal, I'm not ruling out hope that The Rock could show up and drastically change the landscape of WrestleMania Goes Hollywood. So I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by that bizarre little not error, but just kind of ambiguity of, well, what night will it be? I don't know. You could assume Sunday night, but if there's some sort of other match with Roman's in, he could be penned in for both nights, which we've been saying for a while, but we don't know actually if it's going to happen yet. So until it does, we can just speculate. Also, Saturday night, we had the NXT Vengeance Day pay-per-view from, I believe, Charlotte. It looked great. Sold pretty well from what I'm understanding. And some quality matches. But the most bizarre, unique story coming out of this whole night was the broken or dislocated finger of one Donovan Dijak, and the photo he posted of it literally just bent, and he's flipping the camera off with it. Just an unbelievable performer Donovan Dijak is. I had the pleasure of seeing him at PWG back in 2017, where him and Keith Lee had a 5-star Dave Meltzer match in the Battle of Los Angeles tournament. But the cool part to me, and a lot of people give Meltzer flack and whatever, but to me and a lot of wrestling fans, he's a big deal. He's a big deal. I like him or hate him. Dave Meltzer was sitting 2 seats from me, front row PWG, for that match between Dijak and Keith Lee, and he had his like a literal notebook like you would bring to school for class in college just to write some notes down. He was writing notes at the American Legion there out in Reseda before they went to the Globe Theater and made everything incredible for PWG back in the 90 plus degree, 300 people in there like sardines American Legion, which was an incredible place to have PWG. That's where the legend kind of grew. And we'll kind of tap into PWG later on in the show when we discuss the AEW main event. Or not main event, but Big Trio's title match from last night's Dynamite. We will have the little bit of a PWG connection, what I saw when I watched that match. But, man, yeah, Dijak and Keith Lee were right in front of me, and I look over and Meltzer's writing notes down, and then, the match was insane. If you ever get a chance to watch it from Battle of Los Angeles, Night 3, 2017, Keith Lee versus Donovan Dijak, man, that match is just unbelievable. And I think at some points, I think you can actually see me, because, I'm right there. I'm right up front there, and I'm just in awe. I'm just marking out every 5 seconds. So Dijak's a badass, and I'm glad he got his name back. I'd like to see him get to the main roster. I really would. I think now he kind of has a revitalization, and I think a lot more promise is going to come from these NXT guys now that Shawn Michaels is running NXT with Triple H running Raw and SmackDown. I think it'll give guys like Dijak more opportunities on the main roster to thrive, to get more opportunity, and maybe get more of a scope on, where their talents really are and how they can excel on a bigger stage. Because I think guys like that can, and they just haven't been able to tap into stuff like that yet. What else we got here? After, let's see, we'll go into Raw, I guess, now. Raw was kind of a mixed bag. Paul Heyman and Cody Rhodes. Let's just get into that right now. The promo between those two guys, Cody discussing how Paul Heyman in the later days of ECW, I believe in 2000, Cody and his family, they were hard times, daddy, and they were, actually struggling. And Paul reached out to Dusty and brought him in, and had a legendary little run with Steve Corino in the last leg of ECW's run. And Cody brought that up, and Paul Heyman is like visibly emotional, I think he was crying a little bit listening to this Cody promo. Cody's so good with the mic. He really lets you in to the story and really makes you feel like you were there, like next to Cody, living these experiences. And that's why, he's in this spot. He can really bring you in the story as a fan. From his perspective, it's an incredible thing. And he says all this, such an emotional promo, so nice. And, Paul comes in and he concludes the entire segment by saying, one of the last things that Dusty said to me was that you, Cody, were his favorite son. Great moment. And then a little pause. But Roman Reigns was the son he always wanted. And he just sucked the air out of the room. Paul Heyman's so good. I think he, if you contribute every facet of what Paul Heyman has done in his career, whether it be sometimes doing commentary. I remember him doing commentary for Starrcade 90. This is so random, but it was a random VHS tape that I had found and watched when I was probably 11 or 12, I want to say. Around that time is when I found this tape at my grandparents' house, and it was labeled something random. I don't know. And I put it in the VCR, and it happened to be Starrcade 1990 on pay-per-view. And Paulie's on the call for that show. So whether he's doing commentary, he also does commentary at WrestleMania 17, which is why I think that show is as great as it is. Another facet of that is having Paul Heyman on commentary. Managing the Dangerous Alliance, he ran ECW, like all those things considered. Now he's as a manager role once again, but at the top level. I think Paul Heyman's the greatest non-wrestling performer in the history of pro wrestling. I truly do. He just embodies what wrestling can be on a big stage, but not make it look like everything's real. Everything comes off so genuine with Paul Heyman. And that's probably because he was at the Garden. He was doing these things as a youth, being ensconced in the business, and eventually being in the business further and further, becoming just a legend. And here we are talking about him, every week, and we're in 2023. And I was talking about hearing him on commentary at a pay-per-view in 1990, 33 years ago. That's the longevity. This same week we had LeBron James become the scoring champion, all-time leading scorer in NBA history. You might not be an NBA fan, but my God. 20 years in the league at that level. Tom Brady just retired again, but probably for real this time. 23 years in the league. That's at the highest level. That's not just playing football for 20 years. That's playing football in the NFL for that long. Paul Heyman's been at this level for 30 years. I consider him being, if you're in WCW, if you're a Dangerous Alliance, if you're managing, you're at the top of your game. It's a major company. He was doing major things then. He ran ECW from 93 to 01. He became a commentator, but got back in with Lesnar. Just all those things. He's been at the top tier of pro wrestling business for so long now. I think he's the greatest non-wrestling performer in the history of pro wrestling. You could argue Bobby Heenan, for a lot of those things, but Bobby Heenan never ran a company. That's where I think Paul Heyman has done a little bit of everything, but every little bit he's done so much with each piece. Bobby Heenan's a great commentator, great manager. He even worked in ring, but he, unfortunately the longevity couldn't be there, later on in life. And unfortunately, he never got a chance to run a promotion. It's just the stuff that is the resume Paul Heyman's built up is so stellar that it's really tough to, put into perspective of where he stands overall as not being a guy who was actually in the ring wrestling. But I like to think I just kind of gave a little roundabout way of saying it there. So that promo was fantastic, and that's what we're going to get coming to WrestleMania. Don't know what we're going to do at Elimination Chamber. The card is not really set in stone yet outside of the Elimination Chamber matches having the competitors in there. But right now, and so now we'll get into it because I don't think Cody is doing anything at Elimination Chamber, at least not yet. But let's say he gets involved. Actually, you know what? Here. We don't know what's going to happen with Cody. Let's run down a little bit more of Raw, then I'll get into what the Chamber looks like at the moment. Damian Priest and Montez Ford got into the Elimination Chamber. And we also had a fatal four-way between Candice LeRae, Mia Yim, Piper Niven, and Carmella, which Carmella won to make it into the Elimination Chamber event. Here's another little note. The Chelsea Green Karen angle. Karen angle. I like it. I don't know where they'll go with it, but I like it. I like that there is a character that so many people can relate to. Can I speak to the manager? You know, that person can be so annoying and has been labeled as a Karen, this whole time. Maybe they'll label them starting as a Chelsea. Maybe that's what they're going for. I like what they're doing with it. I just don't know what they're going to do next with it after this first couple of weeks. But Chelsea Green got dominated by Asuka. And it made good sense. Asuka with the victory. And she, of course, is in the chamber as well. Yeah, Montez Ford won. And then the main event was a steel cage match. Becky, Bayley. And this match was wild. I feel like, these types of matches should be in the main event. And it was. It should have been at Raw 30, but they time constraints. I've been critical of the AEW death slot from 9:20 to 9:40 before the main event of women's matches on the program. WWE main event, cage match, 2 top stars. And the end concluded with Lita returning. Seems to be on a one-match deal, but returning to help Becky Lynch. And I thought that was fantastic. I can't believe that we saw Lita and Beth Phoenix, who was on earlier in the night, on an episode of Raw in 2023. It was just a lot of, vintage women's wrestling coming into play. I thought it was really cool to see those two. And I don't know what you would assume it'll be Lita and Becky Lynch versus Bayley but we don't know who that and will be. If it's Trish Stratus, damn, do we have a hell of a match coming up at WrestleMania. I'll tell you that right now. So let's look at this. We're going to tentatively, as we're going into the Elimination Chamber match card right now, as we're about 9 days away, next Saturday in Montreal. We're going to pencil in Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley because there's going to be a contract signing next Monday, and I'm sure someone will get F5'd or suplexed through a table, or there'll be a pull-apart brawl. You know what they do. But Lesnar-Lashley looks to be penciled in for that event. We also have a mixed tag team match. Edge and Beth Phoenix taking on Finn Balor and Rhea Ripley, which will be a fascinating match. Again, we'll get into the predictions next week, but just looking at it from this angle, it were to seem that the legends might get the upper hand in this contest. We also, of course, have Roman Reigns versus Sami Zayn for the undisputed WWE Universal title in Montreal. Unreal. And then we got the 2 Elimination Chamber matches. The first one that I'm going to talk about is for a Raw Women's Championship contest at WrestleMania 39. This will be the winner of this match will get that shot, presumably against Bianca Belair. And it will be Asuka versus Liv Morgan versus Nikki Cross versus Raquel Rodriguez versus Natalya versus Carmella. And that will be for the person to face Bianca Belair at Mania. And we also have the Elimination Chamber match for the United States Championship, which I really enjoy, first of all, that the U.S. title is getting this elevated type of match. I do believe there was women's tag titles in Elimination Chamber match. And I'm not too sure. I think this might be the first one that wasn't a WWE title match, like another title. Maybe I want to say the Intercontinental title was involved in one, but I'm not sure. I have to do some digging before next week's show. But yeah, this is for the U.S. title, and it will be Austin Theory versus Seth freaking Rollins versus Johnny Gargano versus Damian Priest versus Bronson Reed versus Montez Ford. Which I like Bronson Reed in this match. I really can't wait to discuss the intricacies of what I think is going to happen in this contest, which, again, we'll get to next week. But the types of guys in this match all can lead to really innovative and creative spots. And I think it's really going to set a nice tone for the next show, which will be, of course, WrestleMania. So yeah, that Raw was what it was. Like I said, we're in that meddling period. Once Elimination Chamber concludes, we can be straightforward to the road to WrestleMania, where everything will be leading to that event, and that's the most exciting time of the year by far. Let's do a little out of the ring news real quick, but we'll stick with WWE. It was announced that SummerSlam 2023 will be at Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan, Saturday, August 5th. First of all, once again, Saturday pay-per-views are the absolute best. And I like the Detroit of it all. I think it's going to be a solid venue for that. I don't know if they'll sell it out because they had to shrink down tickets for Allegiant Stadium to make Money in the Bank work. But SummerSlam in Nashville was pretty successful, so I think they'll be able to pull off Detroit. And Detroit held WrestleMania 23 in 2007, so I think they can do some solid stuff with that. Now, let's get into the AEW of it all. Dynamite last night was Dynamite. It was a championship fight night where we saw a lot of interesting things happen. First, world title eliminator match, Takeshita versus MJF. This is just an unreal star that Takeshita is. Like, if AEW knows what they're doing, and I like to think that they do know what they're doing, and they want to take advantage of, these star-making moments from these guys that maybe necessarily aren't the biggest names, it's Takeshita. He's one that I think needs to be pushed. Him and MJF stole the show. I thought that was the best match. It was a 20-minute match. MJF was the victor. Man. And in El Paso, Takeshita hitting the frog splash. Man. MJF just on another level. And then MJF cutting a promo in the back. very reminiscent of a Ric Flair promo. Because Ric Flair, notoriously, yeah, he was a bad guy at times, but you couldn't deny his charisma, and you loved his intensity and everything he brought to the table. And with MJF, I find the same exact traits. He is screaming at the top of his lungs about how great Takeshita was as a competitor, but he's nothing compared to me, MJF. And then he just loses it and goes on this incredible promo about how he was driving a car, and crashed the car once after some things happened, he crashed the car with this woman in the car. And when the cops pulled up, he said he switched her to be the one driving instead of him so she would get the fall. And man, he was just on another level. And he is on another level. We'll get to where he's going at Revolution at the end of this. But man, Takeshita and MJF, give Takeshita some more TV time. I want him on Dynamite every week. I'll just say it right now. I'd like to see him at a match at the pay-per-view. Now, I would presume there's going to be a Face of the Revolution ladder match. Give me Takeshita in the ladder match. We had an injury-shortened match. Jamie Hayter and the Bunny. The Bunny, man, looked pretty rough after a lariat, and just they took her out. They had to kind of stop the match kind of on their own merits. It just was not the right call. It was an ugly spot. They had to finish the match, but it sucked that the Bunny couldn't get a little highlight on TV. She doesn't really get that much TV time. This was a chance to do that, and she got injured, unfortunately. Same with Jamie Hayter. I know she's champion, but this is a nice spotlight, and she didn't really get to utilize that spotlight, unfortunately. But Daniel Garcia defeated Ricky Starks after Starks defeated 2.0. I don't know what the hell they're doing. I don't know if Ricky Starks is going to do anything. Ricky Starks has to fight Jericho at some point, Isn't that the end all be all? I think that'll happen at Revolution, but I mean, my God, how are they going to get there? They just keep whooping his ass. Ricky Starks has not done anything other than, saddled up with Action Andretti and lost. Then he beat 2.0 by himself and then lost to Garcia. So, I don't know what they're doing with Starks, but again, maybe they're just setting up for him and Jericho down the line, and hopefully they'll just get past this Jericho Appreciation Society. I'm done. I'm ready for something new. I am. It's exhausting, It's exhausting. I love, and I'm praising. I praised Chris Jericho a couple of weeks ago for always being something new, elevating his game, elevating the talents that he has to another level. But always being a chameleon and being something new and something fresh. But right now, he seems like he's in Chris Jericho is in traffic. I coined that term, I think, one of the first weeks I did the show. And, he's in traffic. Ricky Starks is actually the one in traffic. Jericho's the tunnel at the end of the tunnel, but Starks can't even get to the beginning of the tunnel. And then, this is probably the best match in the whole show. Bryan Danielson defeated Roosh. Unbelievable match. This would have been an incredible pay-per-view match. But MJF, after Danielson defeats him, MJF goes down and beats up Danielson. And we are getting MJF versus Bryan Danielson in a 60-minute Iron Man match at Revolution. Wow. I cannot wait to get to the predictions for that pay-per-view. I really think they're going to do a lot of unique and interesting falls. Or they have the potential to do that with this first ever 60-minute Iron Man match at an AEW pay-per-view. I'm really looking forward to what these two guys can do in the ring. I mentioned PWG earlier. The Elite. Young Bucks and Kenny Omega versus Top Flight and AR Fox. My God, AR Fox. Back when PWG was in that American Legion and they would do shows, maybe once every couple months or whatnot. Like the shows happened and people raved about them, but then that was it. And then randomly, it would be a Monday night during Raw, and PWG would upload like the DVD preview for that show. And it would be like 5 minutes, but it would be like the most packed, spot-filled 5 minutes of showing all the crazy spots. Probably 60% of those spots. There's still so much more that they could have shown, but it was just always like the best points of the matches in the show. And it was just to get you to hype up the DVD to purchase it. And one of the guys I always saw is how you get drawn into PWG. AR Fox was one of those guys that flying over the ring apron, flying over the ropes, flying over the corner post. Him and Ricochet were always two of the guys that would just do these unreal athletic things in the ring. And this did not disappoint. This match was unbelievable. It was incrinculant. The amount of talent between these six guys is just unreal. And I don't think it was as good as the Roosh Danielson match. However, I think that the fans clearly, I mean, obviously they're on Top Flight and AR Fox's side here, but they love the Elite as well, of course. But I don't know how you couldn't see the talent on the other side of the ring here. And I'm looking forward to seeing who AEW gets to finally dethrone the Elite from this legitimate title reign. It could be Death Triangle, but they've done that already because they had to, the whole brawl out thing. They had to reverse course with all that. Now the Elite's the champs. Who will be the trio to defeat them? I wouldn't have minded to see Top Flight and AR Fox take it, although it's too early, because of how talented they all are in the ring. But man, the whole match was just a PWG match. I felt like I was just watching a PWG match. Near falls, nip ups, super kicks, topes, flying around the ring. Just some unbelievable stuff. And then the final match of the night, which, wow. I don't know what Tony Khan's trying to do. Maybe he wants the Acclaim to get the titles back at Revolution. Maybe he has FTR potentially coming back in to have a match and take the titles off them. But the Guns won the AEW tag team titles, which the Acclaimed are arguably the most overact in any company and went through so much to finally win those tag titles, and including a match where they kind of got coaxed into winning and they just didn't call the audible, and then by the next time they had a match, they did make that decision and had the Acclaimed win, and they've been so over. But the Guns somehow snuck away with the titles in this match to a stunned silent crowd in El Paso who just didn't know what to believe, and I was kind of stunned when I watched it. I was like, wow, what? The Acclaimed are so over, and yet that's it. And again, I don't know if they think FTR is going to come back into the fray and have a match at Revolution, or if the Acclaimed will just kind of get a rebound rematch and win the titles, or what. But I like this wrinkle in the storyline, at least from the onset. Now, if they don't follow course, or if there's some other reason why this is happening, I don't know. We'll have to see what next week brings, and we'll follow up when that bridge is built. But I kind of like the title switch. I really sidebar, kind of related. I love the Guns theme song. Do 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 do. It's incredible, and it also this match featured, I think, probably the greatest ref bump in the history of pro wrestling. He got elbowed by Bowens in the middle of the ring, and he spun around and took a middle rope bump through the ropes to the apron and then onto the floor. And it was just the greatest thing I've ever seen, to be honest with you. Wow. And that was AEW Dynamite, where, again, now we got Revolution coming up, and we're going to get, hopefully, that ladder match for the face of the Revolution. And then you're going to get MJF and Bryan Danielson in a 60-minute Iron Man match for the AEW title. So I think it's going to be a fun road to that. I don't know what they're going to come up with outside of it. It's going to be the first pay-per-view in California for AEW. That match is going to be off the chart, but I don't know. I really think they need a strong undercard, especially with a 60-minute Iron Man match. I'm sure it'll be legendary, but I really think that, you're slotting 60 minutes of a potentially 4-hour show strictly on one match. So for 3 other hours, at least 2.5 to 3 hours, you're going to need to pad 5 to 6 matches, and I'm sure AEW will put on 10 more matches. So we'll have to see. But I'm looking forward to it, as I stated earlier. And we'll do 2 more quick notes. The first note is it was kind of scary there for a moment, but now it seems to be pulling the nose up here. Jerry Lawler, legendary Memphis wrestler, WWE commentator, just legend, had a stroke this past Monday, and apparently his speech has been limited, but he's recovering in a Fort Myers, Florida hospital. And he's getting rehab to where he will eventually have a full recovery. Some of the photos I saw from Jerry Lawler's Twitter included the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, coming down to visit, which was so nice. Jimmy Hart, God, how old is he? But man, if you're in the wrestling business, it's a really close-knit group of individuals. And I say close-knit, but I mean, it's thousands. The pro wrestling industry, It doesn't ever leave you if you're in it, and I'm not in it, but I can see that from my perspective, and I've been around it and can really, I understand that it's so corny, but people say this for hockey or any other pro sport team, and but not necessarily for the industry of it being a brotherhood or a sisterhood, just people being really close together, and to see Jimmy Hart, who I'm going to look it up actually right now. He's got to be... See. Jimmy Hart is 79 years old. He was born on January 1st, which is pretty cool. And Jerry Lawler is 73. So it's so nice, though, to see even older guy coming in and visiting Lawler in the hospital, and he was showing him some old photos, and it was just really, really sweet to see that on Twitter. Thoughts are with Jerry Lawler, the King. Hoping to get back to a more comfortable state going forward and get out of the hospital and see what happens going forward. Hopefully he's out of the woods here. The other thing I wanted to pick up on, today's Thursday when I'm recording this, and the ratings for AEW came in. And it was I believe, was it 869 or 889? I think it was 889,000. Let's see, I'll get the exact note here. 899,000, which is okay. But it's interesting to me that every time AEW gets anywhere near the million, like that's it. They don't get anywhere over it. Like they just hit 899. Last week they were at 901. So January 25th's episode, they had 1,003,000, right? That's the only one of this 6-week cycle here in this 2023 that they've hit over 1 million. And before that January 25th show, and I hesitate, but I'm pretty sure that was the first show after the Jay Briscoe accident that happened that took his life. So people were going to be tuned in heavy to see that show. Although the next week had the main event. So that was 1 million on January 25th. But the last one to hit 1 million before that was October 5th. And previously, outside of the week before, which was 990, they had 5 straight millions from August 24th to the 21st of September, then that hiccup on September 28th, and then another million on the 5th of October. That was like the hottest AEW was, and that was right around All Out with Punk and MJF. So it's, I don't know. AEW seems to be 850 to 950 almost every week, 1,000 every week, but they can't get to that million. And when they do get to that million, it's gone by the next week. And I don't know what the issue is. I don't know if there's just a disconnect between the fans or, or what, but, and I know ratings aren't everything, but it's tough to not see patterns like that. And if you're thinking that AEW is doing better each week, but the ratings aren't showing it, like what really is the issue? And the demos are okay. The demos have actually been strong in the 0.3 plus range the last month, which is good. But again, that the viewership just can't hit that million. But we'll see. We'll see as we get closer to the pay-per-view. Maybe that'll get some more buzz. You really don't know what it kind of takes to get there. But Raw has been getting solid ratings recently. Show's been getting better. But as we've said since AEW's inception in 2019, when the product of either WWE or AEW gets better, the other will inevitably have to get better to compete and stay on a high level to compete with the other company. So I don't know. I'd like to see AEW crack that million and stay there and sustain that for a while. But I don't know if that can happen. We'll see. So, yeah, that's all I got, I think, for this week on the Juice Box. Kind of said it was a nothing week, but we still knocked out a good 40 minutes out of this thing. So, pretty happy with that. Still kind of tweaking how I'm doing the show, trying to figure out and maximize how I can get the audio levels on this. Last week's was blown out, and hopefully this week is less loud and popping through the stereo speakers, but hopefully not too low that you can't hear it at all, because that would be really terrible. So with that, and then also I'm also trying to figure out how I would like to incorporate guests into the show. I got a couple of ideas marinating, and when I get closer to unveiling some of those ideas, once they're more fleshed out with the other people that I'm going to talk to, once those ideas are more fleshed out, then I can think about how to present them to a broader audience, aka drop those pods. We'll get there, and you guys will know about it. So until next time, I am Juice Springsteen. You can follow me again on Twitter at JuicySteen. My Instagram is at Juicy Wrestling Closet. You can follow this show on Apple Podcasts. Rate and review, a 5-star review would be fantastic. And as well, you can go to juicysteen.podbean.com. And yeah, Twitter is probably the best way to find me. Chat Wrestling. We'll have Elimination Chamber predictions next week. And yeah, fun week this week. Looking forward to the Chamber next week. But this has been the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. See you guys next week. That was the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to the Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.